started dialing.
Okay.
Okay. You're going to want to say, just hang on the line. This is John Cahill. We're going to get some more of your neighbors on before we start. Okay. Give it a couple minutes. Give it a minute, though, so it dials.
Hi, this is John Cahill. Thanks for calling in. If you don't mind, just hang on the line for a few more moments while your neighbors join us. So thank you. Just hang on. Hi, all. Thanks for hanging on for just another couple of moments while your neighbors join us. I look forward to chatting with you all this evening. Thank you. Thanks for calling in. We'll be with you in one moment as some of your neighbors join us for the call this evening. So just hang in for a few more moments. Thank you very much. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's John Cahill. We're just waiting for a few more minutes as more neighbors join in on the call. But so just hang on for another couple of minutes and we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. It's John Cahill. We're just waiting a couple of minutes as a couple of more callers get on the line here. But thanks for your patience and I look forward to talking with you this evening. Good evening, everyone. It's John Cahill. Thanks for calling in this evening. Look forward to a good conversation about issues facing New York. We'll get started in just another couple of minutes. Thank you. Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Thanks for your patience.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Trish Bergen. I'm a councilwoman in the town of Islip, and I'm here tonight to tell you about a very unique opportunity that New York voters have a real chance to gain a partner in the state of New York. John Cahill is running for New York Attorney General, and just bear with me for a couple of minutes because this is very important for women in New York. As a woman, we often find our rights caught up in this partisan back and forth. The media often perpetuates the divide by reducing the discussion of our rights to sound bites. And campaigns use a lot of rhetoric that just fails to materialize once the candidate makes it to office. Well, tonight I want to introduce you to someone who's different, someone who is going to hear our concerns as women. They're going to engage in discussion and take real action to improve the lives of women for all of us here in the state of New York. Again, his name is John Cahill. He's a fabulous candidate for the New York Attorney General's race. John understands that there is so much more to the debates surrounding women's rights in New York than that single issue, and you know it, that issue of reproduction and reproductive rights that is being pushed around by Democrats across the state. He has heard from women who want to talk about the economy, economic opportunities for their families. He wants to hear from you on higher quality schools for our kids, safer streets in our communities, and a government that is free from corruption. And he has a plan, and he is going to take real action. This is not a one-issue candidate. He is not going to allow our rights as women to be taken away by the rhetoric that is put out there. And just today, John announced a very unique initiative to create a division within the Attorney General's office that will specifically address the culture that surrounds domestic violence, sexual assault, and harassment in our state. We haven't been able to turn on our TVs at any point in the last couple of weeks without hearing of another major case surrounding these issues. And John will be able to use the powers of the law to try to change that culture and make a real difference for the women in our state and here on Long Island. And I want you to please support him in November. I'm going to turn it over now to John so that you can learn more about him. John, thanks so much.
Well, Trish, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Let me just first start off by saying to press 0 if you have a question during the course of this evening. I'll remind you of that during our discussions. But I'll just take a moment or two, if you don't mind, just to introduce myself a little bit, give you some of my background before we have a good discussion on issues important to women in Long Island. So I was born in the Bronx. My parents were Irish immigrants. I'm one of 6. I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers. Grew up in Yonkers, New York, and educated at Fordham University in the Bronx, and attended Pace University Law School for both my JD and my LLM. I spent a year teaching in between, which was a great experience. In 1995, when George Pataki became governor, I joined his administration. We were been longtime friends and partners in a law firm, where I joined as the Department of Environmental Conservation, and I served as commissioner of that agency for 4 years, and extraordinarily proud of the things we were able to do for New Yorkers during that period, such as preserve 1 million acres of open space, and much of that was in the Pine Barrens of Long Island. I think it was without question that New York State led the nation on environmental protection during the Pataki administration. And after several years there at DEC, I went down and joined the governor's staff, and I spent the last 5 years of Governor Pataki's term serving as his secretary or chief of staff, where I was responsible for all statewide operations, but I was really focused at that point on rebuilding Lower Manhattan after the horrible attacks of September 11th. So I'm very proud of the record that and things we did in state government with Governor Pataki, and since then I've been in the private sector practicing law. The governor and I have a consultancy focused on energy and environmental issues. So I very much have enjoyed being back in the private sector, spending some time with my family and paying the tuition bills, which so many of us are challenged with these days. But I really decided to seek political office for the first time because of the failures of Albany, and particularly the failures of the Attorney General. Having been in government, I understand the power of government, the good that it can do. Certainly, you can the response after events such as the Pine Barren fires and certainly the attacks of September 11th showed us that the government can really respond to the needs of people. But I don't see that coming out of Albany these days. I certainly don't see it out of the Attorney General's office, who is supposed to be an independent voice for New Yorkers, who's supposed to stand up for the rights of all New Yorkers and challenge the system and not be, if you would, part of the status quo in Albany. I am committed to changing that, to be an independent voice in Albany, to hear the concerns of New Yorkers, not to aspire to higher political office, but to be the best Attorney General for the people of New York and not just another politician in Albany. So I look forward to this conversation this evening. Again, don't forget to press 0 if you have a question. Really looking forward to the conversation. So again, this is John Cahill. I'm running for Attorney General, and let me open it up to some questions. Maria from Hempstead. Sorry, we just lost Maria from Hempstead. Hi, again, everybody. This is John Cahill. I'm the candidate for New York State Attorney General. We're here tonight to hear your concerns and your issues about the state of New York. it's today, talking about what we did today, I announced an initiative with respect to domestic violence and sexual harassment and sexual abuse. I know we certainly have all been seeing the headlines over the last 2 weeks with respect to Ray Rice and all the issues surrounding the NFL, but it's an issue that plagues our society on a daily basis. And we need people in Albany that are serious of tackling the issue of sexual harassment and domestic abuse. We can't have that when they're complicit in trying to hide and to cover up instances of domestic violence. As some of you are not aware, we had an incident in Albany about a year and a half ago where there was sexual harassment in the state legislature, which had frankly been happening on and on for years. And when a particular Assemblyman, Villa-Lopez, was sexually harassing women in the workplace, instead of the Attorney General standing up and confronting the issue and protecting the rights of women, he was complicit in trying to buy the silence of these women. That's the type of attitude that I think rightfully enrages New Yorkers. An Attorney General should be the one enforcing the law, and respecting the rights of women in the workplace. We don't have that in Albany, and I would make it a priority through the creation of division of domestic violence, sexual assault, and sexual harassment to ensure that the resources are put in place to communities that need it to give women and men and children the opportunity to discuss with the Attorney General's office their rights through a confidential hotline, would make sure there's a proper coordination of efforts between counties, localities, and the state to make sure that people who are the subject of sexual harassment or domestic abuse know who to call and have confidence that the discussions will be kept confidential. We haven't addressed the issue of sexual assault and domestic violence in a very serious way in Albany. We need to change that. So, again, this is John Cahill. I'm running for Attorney General for the state of New York. Let me get Lenore on the line from Hempstead. Lenore, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I wish you good luck on your election, and you come with a very, very good background, and I do hope you get in. I mean, it's very good. I'm 90 years of age, and
God bless you.
I live in a house. Thank you very much. Something was wrong with me when 4 months I didn't know what was happening. I was a mummy walking, a mummy woman. I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't see, nothing else. I was losing my eyesight. To make a long story short, at the end of the year, I suddenly decided, my son said, you got to take legs to make my eyesight came back, and thank God I'm able to read, I'm able to walk properly, I'm able to be a human being again. But here I am. My husband left me nothing. He's gone about 40-some years. I've been holding my own, but I'm running short of money. I'm looking for a place to go to when I sell my house, which is not worth that much. But I've asked the rabbi, 2 rabbis. Nobody can help me. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where one could go if one doesn't have money. And that's the underlying cause. The reason there are so many burglaries and things like that is because everybody's looking for money. They have no money. That's a big problem in this world.
Lenore, I mean, the problem that I hear from you, and thank you for the call about the challenges of particularly our seniors that are looking to be maintained in their home. They've lived in the community their entire life. They've raised their children in these communities. They want to be close to their grandchildren. And many of our communities have become far too expensive for them to live. And, that's a result of, many things, and certainly one of them is the fact that we have a stagnant economy in too many places in the state, and we don't really attend to the needs of our particularly our elderly. And I think what we need to look at is certainly, by the way, make sure you reach out to the Division of Housing in the state of New York. They should be able to help assist you in identifying opportunities for affordable care, living and affordable care. We don't have enough affordable housing in this state. Certainly in communities like Long Island, where it's very expensive, we have been failing to address the issue of affordable housing. And without that, we're not going to be able to keep people such as you in Long Island and stay in their communities. So it's a matter of looking at affordable housing opportunities. It's a matter of reducing the tax burden here in New York State, and it's a matter of creating new jobs. That's how we're going to be able to keep people like you, which we need to do, in our communities on Long Island. So thank you, Lenore, for calling in. Let me just take a second again to remind the callers to press 0 for your questions. I'd love to talk with you this evening. This is John Cahill. I am the Attorney general candidate for the state of New York when the election's coming just a little over 7 weeks away. So let me get Kim on the line from Holtzville. Kim, are you on the line? Kim. Hello? I think we just might have lost Kim. So, listen, not only, just talk for a second about some of the other critical issues facing Long Islanders and really the state is on the issue of education. And, I've been very vocal in challenging the status quo with respect to education because far too often it's failed our children. Many communities on Long Island are blessed with wonderful school districts. Now we have the challenge of the Common Core that's being imposed, on a national level through the state level. And I don't believe that one size fits all. The idea that we're imposing this new standard without giving our teachers, without giving the administrators, without giving the parents the proper opportunity to comment and to respond, I think is just outrageous. The rollout of Common Core has been nothing short of disaster, and it has affected our children, and it has resulted, in my opinion, in the state failing to do what they're supposed to do, and that's provide a quality education, not imposing a curriculum that is really hurting our children's chances of getting the education that they deserve. So I'm proud to be on the Stop the Common Core line. I do believe in standards. I do believe in testing, but the way it's been rolled out on a national level, being imposed on the state, has been an utter and complete failure. And I think we need to tell Albany that we're not putting up with this. And as an Attorney General candidate, as an Attorney General, I will fight to make sure that we have appropriate standards and appropriate testing for our state, not some one-size-fits-all that's being imposed by people in Washington. So I know that's an important issue on Long Island. You've been vocal about it. I appreciate all of you on Long Island who have helped sign the petitions creating the Stop the Common Core line. I'm proud to be on that line, and let's send a message in November saying we're not taking the Common Core. Let me get Shelley on the line from Woodbury. Shelley, are you there?
Yes, hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm great, Shelley. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, good. Thanks for having me. I actually have two questions that I wanted to ask you. The first one is about the Moreland Commission. I wanted to know if you're going to hold steady on that and really delve deeper into that and get to the bottom of everything as far as that goes. And the second question, my husband's going to jump on. He'll give it to you. Hold on.
Okay.
Hi, John. Thanks for having us, and good luck.
Not at all. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, I've been reading a lot in the regarding the new mayor de Blasio and all the regulation he's starting to impose, specifically which would affect me on the real estate. He wants to control the DHCR and Division of Housing Community Renewal, and make it a city function instead of a state function, which in my opinion should clearly be a state function. So I want to know your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, let me take your wife first on the Moreland Commission. The Moreland Commission was a unique opportunity to really change the culture of Albany. Eric Schneiderman stood up and he appointed 9 of the commissions, stood up with great commissioners, stood up with great fanfare how this was going to change Albany. But when the investigation started, he utterly failed in his responsibility to assert the independence of his office and to protect the integrity in the investigation. The New York Times story, told in detail about the interference from the governor's office and from elsewhere as the investigation got closer to their contributors. It's an absolute outrage that Eric Schneiderman never stood up to protect the investigation but was complicit in its demise. Think of it. When Governor Cuomo ended that commission, he essentially fired assistant attorney generals, and Eric Schneiderman had nothing to say for it. I think it's an utter disgrace. And as attorney general, I've said before that I would make it a priority to reinstitute what was known as the Office of the Special State Prosecutor to ensure that we have integrity in government. I think we need to send a clear message this November that this type of complicitness in corruption in Albany, particularly in the attorney general's office, is not we're not standing for it. We've had enough. We want change. We want somebody who's going to be independent. And with respect to, Mayor de Blasio in New York City, his policies for the city of New York are frankly scary. And who is his closest probably advisor, political friend in Albany, and that's Eric Schneiderman. That's not the type of policies that are going to serve the city well and would be absolutely disastrous for our state. We made tremendous improvements in New York City because we were changed the policing. We understood the importance of economic growth. Now we seem to be bent on a city administration that is only focused on one thing, and that is distribution of wealth, and that's going to be a disaster for our city. So, thank you both for weighing in. Thank you for caring so much about both our city and state. Megan O'Neill from Manhasset, it's good to have you on. Megan?
Hi, John. It's Megan O'Neill Janitas. I am
great
from
to have you on,
Manhasset,
Megan.
New York, originally from Westchester. And I have had, first of all of my congratulations to you, John and Kim. I just want to say this. I have a question for you.
Sure, Megan.
I have had the great pleasure and honor of watching John and Kim Cahill for my entire 45 years of life, watching their integrity and their strength of character in action as they stood up for women in Westchester for years and years when it wasn't politically popular to do so. I worked for Merrill Lynch. I was in 9/11 on the 9th floor, and I watched John Cahill spring into action and make himself available 24 hours a day around the clock for weeks. So I am thrilled to see you going to Albany. I'm a huge supporter of yours.
Thank you,
have
Megan.
a question.
Sure.
My question is, I live in a very high tax bracket. I live in Manhasset. And my kids go to private schools, and we spend a tremendous amount of money on education. And I see absolutely zero accountability with the government and the academic bureaucracy in this municipality. And it's sickening. Every year we spend more and more and more tax dollars on our already fabulous schools, and I don't see any financial accountability. If they were a private enterprise, they would be out of business. And I would love to see more fiscal accountability in the schools.
Megan, well, first of all,
and the Common Core is a total failure.
A total failure, Megan. And thank you for calling in, Megan. You're very kind, and you know how much I love your family and great Yonkers people, Megan, as you know.
We love you too. We love you too. And we're so excited to have a man of integrity in Albany.
Well, thank you,
and
Megan.
His wife, who has tremendous strength of character.
Yes, she is indeed. Thank you, Megan. With respect to the accountability in school districts, I mean, Megan is absolutely right. Whether it's Common Core and whether it's the taxes that we see in the city, in so many of our suburban communities, we need to make sure that every dollar that we're sending to our school districts is well spent. And yes, we have some great school districts. We have some great school districts on Long Island. But certainly transparency in our government, transparency in spending, that's a primary role of the Attorney General's office. He should be making sure that people like Megan have the opportunity to know exactly where their money is spent and holding our school districts accountable for the large amounts of money that is being spent educating our children. So, Megan, thank you for calling in, and thank you really for caring so much about the state of New York. We have Holly from Massapequa on the line. Holly?
Yes. Hi, John.
Hi, Holly. Thanks for calling.
You're very welcome. Now, I have to admit I don't know very much about you, but I'm going to find out right now, won't I?
Yes, you will.
My question for you, well, actually, I should present the scenario first. I live in Massapequa, middle-class community, good family, husband and wife together. I have a 19-year-old child who is in Florida right now. He's a heroin addict. They're closing the treatment facilities. The insurance companies try to force a 28-day treatment plan down our throats, and ta-da, they're cured. My son came out of a 28-day plan and relapsed 5 days later with a needle in his arm.
Yeah.
He's back down in Florida. He's done his detox, and he's back in a recovery center. What are you going to do to open up treatment plans here on the island, combat the heroin problem not just in Massapequa, but this whole island, because my son was driving out to Mastic Shirley to the dealers there. They're killing our kids. And what are you going to do about the insurance companies who try to tell us and tell doctors how to perform their jobs?
Well, Holly, first let me say I wish you all the best with your son, and we'll keep you in our prayers to make sure that he gets on the right direction. But with respect to the heroin epidemic that's facing not only Long Island, but as I travel the state, I hear so many tragic stories like yours and the challenges that parents are facing with respect to the epidemic of heroin in so many of our communities. It is going to take a multifaceted approach in dealing with this crisis that our state is facing. First of all, to your point with respect to treatment, we need to make sure we are pressing these insurance companies, because the 28-day treatment on heroin is not going to, for most individuals, is not going to be enough. I know I've lost two of my own friends to the heroin epidemic, Holly. Heroin is a very, very potent drug, and it takes more than 28 days to get yourself clean of heroin. So, yes, you're absolutely right, and that's a definite responsibility of the Attorney General to be pressing these insurance companies to make sure that they get adequate treatment for recovery. So it's on the recovery side and substance abuse side that we need. We need better education on the risk of heroin, and we also need a tougher law enforcement with respect to heroin. We need to get the dealers off the street, and we need to go up the chain and examine why we are facing this heroin epidemic. One of the reasons is that we are becoming a society that's become too easily to take opiates. And once we're taking OxyContin and those prescriptions run out, too many of our people are basically turning to heroin to replace their addiction to OxyContin. So there's a whole list of people that we need to be taking a very hard look at, from the drug manufacturers to the pharmacies to the doctors that are prescribing this. We need tougher laws to make sure that we are dealing appropriately with those that are selling heroin, and we need to have better treatment for those that are trying to free themselves of this terrible addiction. So, Holly, I wish you all the best, and when I'm Attorney General, I hope you call and see how we can work to make sure that your son gets the proper care here in New York. Dominic from East Rockaway is on the line. Dominic, thank you for calling.
Yeah, Dominic is here. John, good evening.
How are you, Dominic?
I'm fine, thank you. For a middle-aged guy, I'm doing all right, just 87.
You sound great.
And the comment
sure.
is, all this sexual abuse and domestic violence that's going on, mostly that we know of in professional sports. And I'm talking college sports, basketball, football, you name it, it's there. I would guess that if we as a public knew how rampant this is, other than the few instances that have come out in the papers lately, we would probably pass out with shock. That's my comment. The question is, especially that big one that happened, last year at Penn State. I guess you're aware of it.
Sure, yep, absolutely. Problem. Yes.
How and so on. Okay. Now, recently in the football, and it makes my head swirl. My question to you as Attorney General, now we know it's known fact that within the colleges, within the professional sports, money talks and walks. The fact that internally, these people that know it's going on keep on covering it up, which is almost as bad as the guy that's committing the crime. They keep covering it up because they don't want to lose their superstar to draw the people into the stadiums to fill up the cashiers with the bucks. My question to you is, as Attorney General, which to me sounds like an impossible task, how can the Office of the Attorney General slow this thing down inside and slow it down or eliminate it? What can you do as Attorney General to prevent these things from going on from these cover-ups? That's my question, John.
Well, Dominic, thank you for calling in. It takes leadership, Dominic, and it takes the willingness to challenge the status quo, because you mentioned the abuse on college campuses by athletes and the NFL, and it certainly has been very, very disturbing. But you know what? The same thing happens in Albany with our politicians, that people who think they're in power and above the law can get away with the sexual harassment and the sexual abuse of women. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we had that very instance here in Albany. The state legislature has been known the Assembly has had numerous instances where women, young interns, are being sexually abused and even raped by members of the New York State legislative staff. And recently, we had an incident where Vito Lopez, a Assemblyman for Brooklyn, was sexually harassing women in the workplace. And what does the Attorney General of the state of New York does? He's complicit in trying to buy the silence of these women instead of challenging and taking on the status quo. We need somebody in the Attorney General's office who has a zero tolerance for sexual abuse, sexual violence, and domestic violence. We don't have that now. I said today in my press conferences around the state, I will have zero tolerance, whether that's in the halls of the Capitol or that's in the halls of campuses around the state and professional sports, Dominic. We need to understand that this needs to be a priority of our state. One of the critical issues of state government, of any government, is to protect our people. And when we're not protecting women in the workplace or women at home, we are utterly failing. We need to give women the resources, the ability to reach out, to protect themselves so they understand their rights, and then we need tough enforcement when there are violations. And I pledge to bring that as New York State Attorney General. So, Dominic, thank you for calling in. I just want to remind the callers to hit 0 if you have any questions that you would like to bring for discussion tonight. We have Dorothy from Bayville on the line. Dorothy?
Certainly not from crime.
I know.
Good evening. I have a few comments and a couple of piggyback commentary. The elderly lady, Lenore, who was questioning senior housing, in my opinion, too much is made within our society on the rights and the worries of the immigrant population, and not enough to our senior population who has been paying their taxes and helping our schools out for many, many years and have been productive members of our communities. So as a legislator, I would hope to hear you vocal in the media, in the print, that you would stand up to promote senior housing before everybody looks to the voting block of the illegal immigration people. Other than that, the other comment that I had was a woman called in on the unfortunate situation with her son and drugs on Long Island. And also, she's right. A month's treatment is not enough, and we all know that the insurance companies have way too much power, and they promote all this medical necessity. It's a loophole, and we all know it. Any fair-minded person knows that it's a loophole, and it's at the detriment of our society, really, because these kids are committing terrible crimes, and they're dying, and our communities are really, crime-ridden, and we really need to jump ahead of this issue. And to me, it's all outing it. It's being vocal. I think I need legislators who are out there in print, on the news. Maybe a forum like this on the phone is minuscule, but it might start a conversation. We really need to out the bad guys. We need to call a spade and say that we have a moral conduct that we're going to uphold, and whether it's politically correct or incorrect or liberal or conservative, whatever it is, if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. And we're thinking we need to protect our citizens. We need to keep our police force up. I mean, people are nasty against police. I mean, what's the first thing you do if you're in trouble?
Now we seem to have a war on cops, Dorothy, and
it's
really
awful.
It's awful.
I mean,
and they put their line on the line every day to protect us, and now they seem to be the bad guys after really changing the whole environment in New York City and New York State. And with respect to the elderly, let me just and having them stay in their communities. I could certainly speak from a personal level. My mom, has passed away a few years ago, but she's lived in the same house for the last 50 years of her life. It was very much a part of her life, and being able to stay in that community with the same church and the neighbors was very much a critical aspect of her living to a happiness in her older years. And we need to make sure that all of our senior citizens have that opportunity, Dorothy, that they can stay in their community, they can stay close to their children and their grandchildren. That should be a moral imperative of our community. So, and with respect to the drugs, you're so right that it's rampant, and the issue of heroin epidemic is killing our communities. We need to have a solution. The Attorney General's solution is basically more drugs. That is not going to be sufficient. Simply providing an antidote for somebody who's overdosed, yes, I'm supportive of that. It's important to save every life, but we have to get to the root cause of this spreading epidemic, whether it's the pharmacies, the doctors that are overprescribing, the dealers on the street. We need to have better education about the dangers of heroin and substance abuse for our teenagers in our schools. So it's going to take a comprehensive effort to end the scourge of heroin addiction, Dorothy. And as Attorney General, I'm committed to doing that. My platform on drugs will not be more drugs. It will be getting to the root cause of drug addiction in the state. So remember to press 0 to ask for questions. And thank you all for joining us this evening. Zaida from Medford, you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you for taking my phone call.
Thank you
I'm
for calling.
I've been living here in Medford for over 40 years. I'm concerned about the murders, the crime that's happening on Long Island. One of the things I'm thinking about is that people are on psychotic drugs. There is no centers to go. They've all been closed, especially Pilgrim here on Long Island.
Yep.
Okay, so people are self-medicating themselves. They give them the prescription. These men, 18, 19, women, 20 years old, live with their parents. The parents are not watching if they're taking the medication or not. The murders committed here in Medford, the two gruesome ones, were related to the children not taking their medication. And that's my concern. If you're prescribing medication, they should be followed up. There should be a center where they're tested if they're taking their medication or not. I used to walk here in the neighborhood at night with my neighbors. We can no longer walk at night. I had the biggest murder of Suffolk County was my next door neighbor.
Yeah, well, Zaida, thank you. You're so right with this issue of mental health and the issue of drugs, and it is critically important that those young people and elderly that are on drugs, medication for mental health issues, that we have a way to ensure that they are actually taking the medications that they're needed, and that's often the responsibility of the home care provider. But to your point on the issue as well on the crime in the streets, we need to have somebody in the Attorney General's office takes crime as a priority. The current Attorney General is one of the big sponsors of the Drug Dealers Prevention Act, which basically let people who are selling drugs get out of jail card free, putting them back on the streets, selling drugs to people in our community without any sort of penalty. It's just frankly outrageous. That's not the type of mentality that we need in the Attorney General's office. We need somebody in the Attorney General's office who knows that we need a comprehensive approach to drugs and to crime. Yes, we need treatment, but we also need stiff penalties to those that are selling drugs to our community that pose a threat to our community. So I would take a very different approach to drugs and to crime than the current Attorney General. And remember, everyone, please press 0 to ask your questions. And we have Lauren on the line from Hicksville.
Hi.
Hey, Lauren.
Well, I just chimed in. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I just chimed in, so I don't know exactly what you do, but there are some things that I did want to,
I'm running for New York State Attorney General, Lauren, for the state of New York.
Well, I heard that part, but I don't know exactly. Okay, so I have a couple questions, and I do have a comment.
Sure.
So the question I have for you is, as far as Hurricane Sandy goes, there's been a lot of disaster on Long Island, obviously, and other places. There are still people that have mold in their house that are, they're trying to repair things. And I know people that have called politicians and, all sorts of people to get help. And a lot of those people are elderly, and they've got this mold, and then, all this stuff can happen, asbestos, whatever. So what do you plan on doing to helping people that have reached out and needed help and haven't gotten it?
Well, thank you for calling, Lauren. And really, it's frankly, it's unimaginable that here we are approaching 2 years from Hurricane Sandy, and people still haven't gotten the aid, whether it's from the government or for the insurance carriers after 2 years. We need somebody who understands that the insurance carriers need to be held responsible for their delays in paying people that are deserving of it. And frankly, we need to expect more from our government with respect to Sandy aid. It was well over a year ago that Congress announced all this money that was supposed to be coming to New York to help people who had suffered through Sandy aid. And here it is still another year later, and we still have people in mold. Why is that? Where is the transparency? Where has the money gone? It is the role of the Attorney General to investigate not only the insurance companies that are basically failing to do what they're supposed to do, but what about government that's failing what it's supposed to do? As I mentioned on the outset, Lauren, that I was been served as secretary to the governor, his chief of staff, and was very much involved in numerous disasters, the fires out in Pine Barrens as well as September 11th. And I know what it takes to basically get the money to the people that deserve it. And that hasn't happened with Sandy, and people need to be called to account. The Attorney General should be much more aggressive, not only with the insurance carriers, but with their own state government. Why hasn't the state come through with this money? Where is the money? Is it flowing down to the localities and to the people that are entitled to it? So I think if the Attorney General was really a separate independent voice in Albany, he'd be much more aggressive in tackling these issues and challenging and demanding from our state government the money that people are entitled to on Long Island to rebuild their homes. It's absolutely unconscionable that 2 years later people are still suffering from Hurricane Sandy. So, Lauren, thank you for calling. Remember to press. I'm sorry, Lauren, are you still there?
Wait,
yep.
I'm still here. Yep.
Okay.
So you plan on? I'm sorry, I have one more question after that.
Sure, go ahead.
So you plan on? Okay, but you plan on helping out with this problem, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a two-front approach, Lauren. One is with the insurance carriers, because from my travels out to Long Island, numerous people are still being, if you would, not dealt with fairly by their insurance carriers with respect to reimbursement of loss. The second is with the state government, with the federal money that has been designated to Long Island, to New York State, with respect to recovery efforts after Sandy, which still haven't reached the people that they deserve. We need to know answers why. We need to have an Attorney General that's willing to challenge the status quo both with the insurance carriers and with the state government to demand that money be given to those people that suffered after 2 years now after Sandy. So remember to press 0 if you have any questions, everyone. We have Sally from Garden City.
Oh, yes.
Sally?
Hello. Yes.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for calling.
This is a wonderful opportunity. I've been listening from the very beginning. But one thing that I have often wondered in a college or high school, as it were, young men that feel free to sexually assault girls, and they don't have anything taken away from them. They're not asked to leave the school or suspended for anything. My oldest granddaughter was a victim of this in college, not in New York. And she never received any kind of satisfaction. And there's something really wrong, because when you see some young women who have had this happen to them, it affects them the rest of their life.
No question about it, Sally.
And there are some that are strong enough to get past it. But this is one of my. I have more granddaughters coming up, and I think that if anything should happen to them, I can't accept this.
Sally,
when something.
You send a daughter, and I have two daughters, and one just graduated from Fordham University. I have another daughter down in a university down in Philadelphia, and the well-being of them is certainly at the forefront of my wife and myself every day. And the idea that they should be going away to college and enjoying the best 4 years of their lives and have to be concerned about sexual abuse on campus is really disturbing. And, today I announced a point plan with respect to dealing with sexual abuse and domestic violence, and one of those is directed at very much the issue that you just mentioned, and that's sexual harassment and sexual abuse on campus. Frankly, too many of our campuses around New York State do not take it seriously enough. Sometimes they're looking to protect their own reputation and therefore will not deal with these issues of sexual abuse on campus. That needs to change. We need to start holding these universities and their presidents and their board of directors accountable for sexual harassment on women. There was an incident in Columbia University where a young lady felt she had to carry the mattress around the campus in order to get to the attention of the university in dealing with the issue of sexual harassment. So, Sally, I certainly hear your concern. I empathize with your worries as having two daughters of the same age, and we need to start holding universities accountable for sexual abuse on their campus. They are getting, in my opinion, too often pushing it under the rug and not dealing with it. They're afraid of their reputation. Well, I think we need to be much more concerned about the well-being of these women throughout campus. It's a complicated issue, but we need somebody who's not complicit, if you would, in the covering up of sexual harassment, like the current Attorney General who's been complicit in hiding sexual harassment in Albany. We need a much more different approach, somebody who's willing to take it head on. So, Sally, thank you for your call. Remember to press 0, everyone, for if you have any questions this evening. Next, we have Susan on the call on the line from Floyd Harbor. Susan, thank you for calling.
Hi. You got a pretty big job to do.
It's an important job, Susan. Yep.
Yeah. I guess I don't even know where to start, but one of my questions is probably stemming from the core curriculum, the anxiety, the issues we're placing on our children, the huge drug problem on Long Island. You got a lot to do.
Well, you're asking. It is a big job, Susan, and it's a big state. It's a complicated state with many issues. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's like anything else. I'm sure you have a challenging job as well. Raising children. Paying your taxes, keeping your community intact. So we all have challenging jobs. It really depends upon the seriousness which you take it and who you're trying to serve. And with respect to the Common Core issue, I've talked to so many people on Long Island. I had a conversation with a teacher from Islip who literally broke down in tears talking about the challenges that she was having and trying to deliver the Common Core curriculum to her children in her classroom. She told me every day was Friday. She's preparing her children to fail. That's not the way that we build self-esteem in our children. We don't need to follow the national programs with respect to education here in New York. In Long Island, again, we have some wonderful school districts, so we have teachers who care about our students, and now we're imposing a curriculum that no one was prepared for, and the rollout has been nothing but disastrous. I do believe in standards. I do believe in testing. I think they're critically important for teachers and for school districts to be held accountable. But the Common Core issue has created so much anxiety in our classroom. It's been nothing but disruptive to the learning of our children, and it needs to end. So, Susan, thank you for calling in, and thank you so much for caring for the community. Remember to press 0, everyone, for any questions, and we have Meredy on the line from Massapequa. Hi, Meredy.
Yes, hi. You've made me very happy, and you have my vote. And
thank you, Meredy.
Yes, absolutely, and you're going to have a lot more. I love what you said about the core curriculum. My daughter is a kindergarten teacher, and she loves it. She's teaching 20 years. She loves it. When the kids came out of kindergarten, they were prepared for first grade. They can read, they can write, they can do math. And now came core curriculum. And the teachers, they don't even know how to teach it. A simple thing like 5 + 7 becomes 14 steps to get there. Albany sent down, I believe it was the person who helped develop it, and when he went around to the different schools and they questioned him, he got very mad because teachers were upset about it, and he refused to answer. So
Just what you need from somebody out of Albany, right? Somebody, again, telling you how it should be done as opposed to listening to the concerns. And by the way, when did this person come down? After the core curriculum was basically imposed on the classrooms of Long Island, as opposed to going down before, hearing concerns about possibly rolling it out and getting input from teachers and parents and students on Long Island. It demonstrates basically everything that's wrong with Albany. They think they have all the answers in teaching our children. Well, you know what? I would much more trust our parents and our teachers than the bureaucrats in Albany who's getting direction from bureaucrats in Washington, and that's what we have in the Common Core. Meredith, you're absolutely right. It's caused nothing but anxiety and it's been disruptive to the learning of our children. It needs to end. We need to go back and come up with an appropriate set of standards and testing, working with teachers, working with administrators, and with parents, not imposing the dictates from Albany that frankly don't know anything about how to teach our children on Long Island. So, Meredith, thank you for calling in. Remember to hit 0 as we finish up our last few calls here this evening. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we have Luella on the line from Huntington. Luella?
Hi, thank you, and I'm glad you got my name right.
So am I.
It's my grandmother's name, and I carry it proudly.
God bless you. That's great. Where's your grandmother from?
She's from Wales.
Oh, very nice. I've been to Wales. A beautiful part of the world.
I would love to go see it someday. My husband and I are both educators, and we participate in the Flex Plan. We're limited to only being able to use $2,500 per year towards our medical expenses, the pre-tax medical expenses. My husband, my youngest son, and I all need glasses, and my son and I both have medication that has high copays. I had unfortunate. I've been battling thyroid cancer this year, and I'm now facing another surgery this year, which is also adding up to a lot of it. But this is like an every year thing. But it frequently adds up to more than $2,500 per year, and so I have a really hard time understanding why we're limited to only $2,500 per year. And I've had the same conversation with a former student of mine who's in the state assembly, Chad Lupinacci, and I would like to know what you are going to be doing to address that issue.
Well, thank you, Luella, for calling in. And frankly, I've shared that same experience where it was cut from $5,000 to $2,500 on the pre-tax, and that's had an incredible impact on many New Yorkers. And that basically arises out of the Affordable Care Act, where it was reduced from $5,000 to $2,500. So that is an issue on the federal level, but certainly the issue of health care costs and holding insurance companies accountable with respect to appropriate payments, those protecting consumer fraud when it comes to health care, those are all critical issues for the Attorney General's office. And certainly, being an advocate for the working people, for the middle class, when something like this is proposed, where people aren't aware that certain actions have certain cost to them, is what we are seeing so much of. Should have been brought to light much earlier to the people of New York, Luella. So, listen, I wish you well with your illness. We'll all be saying a prayer for you, but keep up that determination of known from the people of Wales, Luella. So, thank you for calling in. So, thank you, everyone. That's going to conclude our Teletown Hall. We're certainly going to do it again. It's been great of you all to join the discussion tonight. And one more thing before you all leave, don't forget to vote for John Cahill for Attorney General on November 4th. Thank you all. Good night. Bye-bye.